nombre es Gabriel Gallegos. Saludos a todos aquellos seguidores de Active Ministries, en especial a nuestra comunidad latina. El día de hoy queremos compartir con ustedes uno de los artículos más impresionantes que podemos tener en nuestra tienda virtual. Te invitamos a que te quedes y a conocer más del modelo tridimensional del templo. Les presento el nuevo modelo del templo. Una de las cosas adicionales que se han agregado en esta impresión es esta base donde está de una manera inclinada de 45 grados. ¿Para qué? Para que pueda enseñarse mejor a nuestra audiencia. O si usted, al igual que a mí, le gusta ponerlo de la manera tradicional y ponerlo en una superficie plana, pues también puedo hacerlo. De esta manera usted lo puede poner en su oficina o en su lugar de estudio o en su lugar de reunión. ¿Para qué? Para que la gente pueda admirar la gran maravilla de lo que se ha podido llegar a hacer. Ahora les voy a invitar a que me sigan acompañando para mirar las siguientes adiciones que se le han agregado a este nuevo modelo. Uno de los nuevos aspectos de este nuevo modelo tridimensional son los colores que se han añadido, como el color oro, el color blanco, un café y un café un poquito más claro. Podemos mirar el color blanco en los 15 escalones que están en el atrio de las mujeres, como también en las 4 lámparas. Podemos mirar el color blanco en el misbeach, en el altar, como también en los 2 escalones que están entre el ulam y el altar. Podemos encontrar este color blanco también en estos pequeños mikvaot o también baños de inmersión que se han añadido. También podemos apreciar en el misbeach, el altar, se agregaron a color las 3 fogatas y en el centro podemos encontrar de color café más claro las cenizas del altar. Otro de los buenos beneficios de este modelo es de que los edificios adicionales, el techo puede ser removido. En el edificio sureste podemos mirar cómo el área donde el Sanedrín se reunía para hacer sus juicios, y también se ha agregado un color azul en donde está el lavacro, para así poder distinguir las diferentes áreas. Les agradecemos mucho a cada uno de ustedes, especialmente a la comunidad latina, por estarnos acompañando. Pueden ir a Jerusalem Temple Studies y buscar la opción tienda o store en inglés y luego buscar modelos del templo y ahí podrán obtener el suyo. Bendiciones y gracias por su apoyo. Shalom. nombre es Gabriel Gallego.
Shalom, shalom, everyone. Um, I have some announcements tonight. Some of them are rather difficult. Uh, First off, I've been asking for prayer for Justin Hotz and his father, his aunt, and last Tuesday night, following after we finished Havara, his father passed away. And if you'll recall, 9 months ago in May, his sister died, and then about 6 to 7 weeks ago, his mother died. And this family's been through so many things. So please be praying for them. And I pray that they'll have strength, that they'll have clear heads, that um, that they'll feel the presence of God all around them. Okay. Also, please be praying for Grayson Jeffords. Grayson had an infection, a urinary infection, and it was very severe. And he was hospitalized. He called me today. He was on his way home. He'll be here at, I believe, our house this coming Sunday. And he is scheduled for some tests at MD Anderson. And my understanding is following the test, he goes back to Tennessee. I don't know what takes place from that point, but please be praying for him. Now, I know a lot of you are having difficult times, whether it be health or economics or whatever. Possibly some of you have relatives, sons and daughters that are serving in the military, and we're in the midst of war. And so we need to be a community. We need to support each other, and we need to have this before us at all times. Give me a second here. And so now tonight, remember that we're going to have questions and answers at the end. And I hope there'll be a lot of good questions. There have been over the last several weeks some tremendous questions, but tonight is a difficult topic. It's not a difficult topic spiritually, it's just a difficult topic to grab a hold of and to understand the ins and outs, okay? And we're going to be talking about the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering. If you like what you are seeing, please hit the like button. If you're on Facebook, then follow us. Also share. All of this helps us tremendously. On YouTube, if you'll subscribe. And if you subscribe, you can also put comments in there. Now, for those of you that speak Spanish, and Spanish is your first language, not as we're doing the live feed right now, but in the playback, which will be available on Facebook. It'll be available on YouTube just shortly. You can click the closed caption, and you can choose Spanish, and it'll come up with a Spanish translation. You might notice that things look a little bit different. And I want to thank Gabriel Gallegos, who got this new light that we're using that kind of changes, kind of puts me in the foreground and everything else in the background. And in addition, he got a new camera. And I think you can see the difference in the quality with the camera and everything. But we are trying our best to be able to not only have good material, but to bring a better presentation to you. Now, if you are a member of Jerusalem Temple Study and you've been having trouble downloading, it is not a a problem that is unique to Jerusalem temple study. All of us that are under the same server are having the same problem. And so it's being worked on, but it's as soon as it gets ready, gets where that option is once again available, we will try to get the word out and you can download and catch up. All right. So last week we started talking about the Korban Pesach and how it was offered. Now, one of the things that I want to show you, I've got a few slides, and a lot we're going to be talking about is halakha. And I'm greatly disturbed by all the flood of how do I put it? News stories that don't have founding, okay? And the various conspiracy theories and so forth. And probably the most disturbing of all is there has been a huge rising in Christian anti-Semitism. And I want to speak about that. And we're going to speak about Holocaust quite a bit tonight. But first off, there's a passage. It's one of my favorites. It's where Yeshua is speaking to a group of the Pharisees. This would be a group from what we believe was Beit Shammai. Now, Beit Shammai was one of the two major groups of the Pharisees, the other being Beit Hillel. And you can do some research. There's a book called Jesus the Pharisee by Rabbi Harvey Falk, based upon an earlier work that was from the 1700s by Rabbi Jacob Emdom, that basically they took and compared what Yeshua said to the recorded listings of what Beit Hillel taught. And it was found that in almost every point, he agreed with them and they agreed with him. And so but Beit Shammai, the difference between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, both are Pharisees, both are extremely observant. But Beit Hillel was more lenient in most cases than Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai would go for the letter of the halakha, okay? I mean, to an extreme. And Yeshua was addressing a group of from apparently Beit Shammai based on the context. And he said that you do greatly err, not knowing the scriptures. Now, stop and think about that. We're talking about Pharisees. I mean, they spend their life basically studying the scriptures, not knowing the power of God. Okay. And you do greatly err, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God. A person can read the Bible and come away without really knowing God. Okay. You say, well, how can that be? Well, first off, if you read the scriptures, you need to read all of them. That's number one. Number two, you need to do it more than once. A big problem in Christianity is people read bits and pieces. They read the parts they like, and then they take messages that are given by various ministers and so forth. And much of this is filled with anti-Semitism. Much of it is against the Jewish people. And there is a strong theme of replacement theology, and that God has replaced Israel with Christianity. If you read the scripture and you read it from cover to cover, and you really look at what it's saying, it does not ever say that. God, the Jewish people are the chosen people. And that was true yesterday, it's true today, and it'll be true tomorrow. And he will never depart from the Jewish people. And so now, we're going to go into, there's a reason that I bring this up, because we're going to have to discuss about halakha, okay? And so if you're unfamiliar with what halakha is, it comes from the book of Shemot, of Exodus, chapter 18. And it's where Yethro, the father-in-law of Moshe, was asking, he was sitting to judge the people, and all day he sat and he judged, and the people stood. And he said, what are you doing? You're going to wear yourself out, you're going to wear the people out. And he goes forward to say, God's going to instruct you, and listen to my counsel, and God will so tell you that you take and set up a court system on the weightier matters. Let them come to you, but the court system. And he gave certain specifications, and we read about this in Numbers chapter 11, where God through Moshe sets up the Sanhedrin. We read in Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 16, starting in the Parshat Shoftim, where we have a court system. They're instructed wherever you, in all your gates, in all your cities, basically, that you are to set up courts. And then it gives instruction. One of the things that it is, we go into chapter 17, verse 8, it says, whatever they decide, do. Do not go to the right, do not go to the left. Coming back to Shemot chapter 18, when Yethro asked him, what exactly do you do? He says, I teach the people the commandments of God and how to walk in them. And the word for walk is holek. And so halakha is how we perform the commandments. Okay. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because to understand the Korban Pesach, you have to understand the part of halakha. Okay. And so let me bring up some of my slides, and I only have a certain amount of slides, but I've got a number of papers. Okay. So we have Pesach and halakha. Here we're going to have an example. Now this is a JPS translation. I went to Sephora, and I didn't think to switch it to the Koran, the Jerusalem Bible, which I much prefer. And you can also let me take a look. I'm going to see how these verses are translated in Art Scroll out of the Stone Tanakh. And so we are at this point. I didn't put where this is found. This would be in Shemot chapter 12. I should have put the address. I'm sorry. In Shemot chapter 12, this is where we have the command to offer a Pesach lamb. And let me turn there. Here it says, you shall keep watch over it until the 14th day of the month. And all the assembled let me see. This is going to be this would be this is verse 6. On all the assembled of the congregation, the Israelites shall slaughter it at twilight. And here it says, it shall be yours for examination to the 14th day of this month. The entire congregation of the assembly of Israel shall slaughter it in the afternoon. That is a better translation. Literally, what the Hebrew has there is Bein HaEravim, which is between the evenings. I'm going to check the Korban Bible real quick. And verse 6, and you shall keep it till the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation shall kill it towards evening. Okay. But literally the Hebrew is Bein HaEravim, between the evenings. Now, I'm going to stop sharing. We'll see it in a second place. in the first month on the 14th day of the month at twilight. Again, it's Bain Ha-Erevim, and I believe this is from Vayikra 9. There should be a Passover offering to God. Okay, but in both of these, you'll see in the Hebrew right here, Bain Ha-Erevim, which literally would translate between the evenings. Okay, let me stop sharing. In fact, I don't think I was sharing. So let me go there and you can take a look at it and then we'll stop it for a moment. Yeah, here it is, Bain Ha-Erevim in Exodus 12:6. And I believe that this is Vayikra. Uh, uh, but it's either Leviticus 9 or it's Deuteronomy 16, one of the two. I apologize for that. Now, I want to go to some of the papers that I have put together. And all right. Now, we have in this year, March 31st. Well, Pesach actually did not start on March 31st. It started in the evening of the 1st of April. Okay, so March 31st would be the daytime, but for the night, and then the following day, April 1st, that evening began Pesach for Jerusalem. Sunrise was at 6:04, sunset at 6:59. The day length, about 12 hours, 31 minutes of daylight. The Second Temple style timing. First hour of daylight was 6:04 to 7:07 a.m. The third hour, okay, so the third hour you'll see is between 8:11 and 9:14. And the 6th hour, noon, was 12:43. Okay, not noon. Okay, not our 12 o'clock a.m. Okay, or p.m. Excuse me. And the 9th hour, it was 3:46 to 4:49. They're based on dividing the daylight interval into 12 proportional hours. This was followed by both the Jewish and the Roman calendars. Okay. Now, in 30 to 33 Common Era, this the reason you might think that I'm doing this trying to establish things from the New Testament, not at all. It has to deal with a building that I'm working on that there was an earthquake, and they date to 30 Common Era, and basically I wanted the setting of that time. Okay. All right. Passover season, sunrise, sunset ranges for Jerusalem around 30 to 33 Common Era, which are often used in historical reconstructions of temple events. Also, Josephus gave the number of lambs slaughtered during Pesach as what? All right. But basically, let's go back up to this top part. And so the third hour of the morning is the time that they would offer the morning shacharit. The 6th hour is noon, okay? But that's going to be, depending on the year, it might be before our 12 o'clock today or after, okay? So in the summer, it's after. In the winter, it's before. And so the 9th hour is what is called Bain Ha-Erevim. It is between the evening. So the morning shacharit goes from sunrise to their noon, but their noon is based on how many minutes there are between sunrise and sunset divided by 12. So you might have a 70-minute hour. You might have a 50-minute hour, depending on when in the year it is. But Bain Ha-Erevim, the evening, is not dark. It's not twilight. it goes from that noon point till sundown. Okay. And so you split that down the middle. All right. Let's stop sharing that. We're going to go back to the slides. If I can get my cursor to go where I want it to. All right. Okay, now we're going to go back to the slides, and we have a problem that develops. All right, so let's go to the next slide. And none of these did I put the, all right. The other lamb you shall offer at twilight, okay? Preparing the same grain offering and libation as in the morning, and an offering by fire a pleasing odor to God. Okay. And again, we have this term Bain Ha-Eravim. All right. I'm gonna pass all this up, and we'll come back to this in a few minutes. Well, yeah. I told you wrong. This passage, I know what it is exactly, and I'm gonna put it over here. This will be from Numbers 28, and it's going to be verse 6 or 7. I'll give you the exact address here. All right. And so let me read this. In fact, I'm going to share it with you here. And let me stop sharing. And we'll go here to the Tanakh. Okay, so we're in the book of Bamidbar. Here's chapter 28. This is book of Numbers. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, command the children of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food for my fires, my satisfying aroma shall you be scrupulous to offer to me in its appointed time. Now, you see this word, you be scrupulous to offer to me at its appointed time. And you shall say to them, this is the fire offering that you are to offer to Hashem, male lambs in the first year unblemished, 2 a day. So this isn't the Pesach lamb. This is rather what we call the Tamid. Okay, and we're going to look and we're going to see where the word Tamid comes from. But it says that in the first year unblemished, 2 a day, as a continual burnt offering, the one lamb shall you make in the morning. Okay, and it doesn't say Bain HaBoker or Bain HaShakar. It basically, it's in the morning, but it was offered on the altar at the 3rd hour, okay? Approximately 9 something, okay? And the second lamb shall you make in the afternoon. Now, look right here. Let me enlarge it a little bit. And it says, Tasa Bain Ha-Ervim. You see the Bain Ha-Ervim between the evenings. And then we go down, and here it says is a continual burnt offering. And let's see, is a continual burnt offering. Let's say I skipped with a 10th of ephah of fine flour as a mixed offering, mixed with a quarter hin of crushed oil. It is a continual burnt offering. And here's the word tamid. Okay, that is so that what does tamid mean? It means continual, it means perpetual. Okay, every day of the year. You know, there isn't a day, a Yom Kippur, Shabbat, every day of the year, you're going to offer a lamb in the morning, and at Bein HaEruvim, you're going to offer another lamb, and that's not your Pesach. But now we have a problem, okay? And so our problem right here is, how can that be? We have, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my mouse right now. All right. Okay. Can that be? We have two things that God commands us, and He even says that, just follow me. On the Tamid, it says, you shall be scrupulous to offer it at this time. And on the Pesach, which is also Bein HaEruvim, it says that you shall be careful to offer it at its appointed time. Okay, so now we have two commandments that seem that they're in conflict with one another. Okay, so I'm going to show you a Mishnah, and hope I can find it real quick. Here we go. All right, let me move the Tanakh, and we come in with the Mishnah. I take Pesachim 5:1. The Tamid is slaughtered at 8.5. Okay, so they move it back an hour. Wait, right here, it's 8.5. This is its regular time, and it's offered at 9.5. Okay, 9.5. That is Bein HaEruvim. So it's slaughtered 30 minutes before, and at Bein HaEruvim, scrupulously, it is offered. Pesach Eve, it is slaughtered at 7.5 and is offered at 8.5, whether on a weekday or on the Shabbat, and it goes forward. Okay, so they had two commandments that seem both could not be done at the same time, and so they are going to how the court ruled that the Pesach was critical to the nation, as the Talmud was. But there is an elasticity that allows them to be able to move that back, and they're still fulfilling the commandments so that they can do both. Okay? Now, I want to go to an article, and there are a couple things I want to talk about in this article before we get into this. Is an article that came out in Israel 365 a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday. And I read it and I thought this is a fantastic article. Okay, so here, this is the article. It's by Shira Schreider. I don't know her. Let me share. And it says, after the sin that made Aaron great. Wow. You know, think of that title, the sin that made Aaron great. Okay. After months of painstaking construction, Israel's sanctuary, the tabernacle, stood complete in the wilderness. The entire nation had gathered. The clouds of glory hovered. The moment had finally arrived for Aaron and his sons to begin their sacred service as priests of Israel. And Aaron froze. Now, it says, and Moshe said to Aaron, come forward. In the actual article, it says, come near to the altar. And the word up here is karav, okay? And karav is basically the same root word that korban comes from, okay? And what does the word korban mean? It means to draw near, okay? Then Moshe said to Aaron, come forward, come near to the altar and sacrifice your purgation offering. This is, by the way, is JPS. And your burnt offering. Make expiation for yourself and for the people, and sacrifice the people's offering and make expiation for them as God has commanded. According to Rashi, the word Moshe used, karav, come near, implied that Aaron had been keeping his distance. Aaron was ashamed and fearful of approaching the altar. Why? This was the most important moment of his life, the culmination of everything. Why would the newly appointed high priest shrink from the very task he had been chosen to perform? To understand Aaron's paralysis, we have to go back to one of the darkest episodes in the Torah. While Moshe was on Sinai receiving the Torah, Aaron was left in charge of the people. What followed was catastrophic. The people demanded a God that they could see. Aaron collected their gold, fashioned a calf, built an altar before it. When Moshe descended and confronted him, what did these people do to you that you brought upon them this great sin? Aaron's answer was famously evasive. They gave me the gold, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. Exodus 32:24. The man standing before the altar of the tabernacle was about to atone for the sins of the entire Jewish people. Was the same man who had presided over the sin of the golden calf. He knew it. Everyone knew it, according to Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Standing there in his priestly garments, Aaron felt not like the high priest of Israel. He felt like an imposter. Moshe's response to his brother is cited in Rashi, cuts to the very heart of what it means to be chosen for a sacred task. He did not offer reassurance. He did not tell Aaron to straighten up and forget the past. He said something far more radical. Why are you ashamed? It was for this that you were chosen. Rabbi Sachs explains what Moshe meant. Who was better suited for that task of atoning for the sins of the people than a man who had known real failure, who understood from the inside what it felt like to be swept along by a crowd, to make a catastrophic choice, to carry the weight of guilt. Aaron knew what sin was, not in theory, but in his bones. He understood the desperate human need for atonement, for cleansing, for a way back to God. What he had experienced as his greatest shame was, in fact, his greatest qualification. This was not simply Moshe offering encouragement to a nervous brother. It was a complete reframing of how Aaron should understand himself and his calling. The very experience he wanted to hide from was the experience that made him irreplaceable. Moshe knew this firsthand. When God first called him to lead the Jewish people out of Egypt, Moshe resisted at every turn. He was not a speaker. He stumbled over words. He pleaded repeatedly, I'm not a man of words. I am slow of speech and tongue. Exodus 4:10. To Moshe, his speech impediment was the decisive proof that God had the wrong man. What he could not see was that this was precisely why God had chosen him. When Moshe spoke, everyone knew he was not performing. No rhetorical gifts nor commanding presence, just a reluctant man transmitting a message that was not his own. The prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah expressed the same hesitation, and both became the most powerful voices in all of Israel's history. The Torah does not hide the weaknesses of its heroes. Moshe stuttered. Aaron caved under pressure and sinned. What made them great was not the absence of struggle, but what they did with it. They wrestled with their inadequacies rather than being defeated by them. They allowed their broken places to become the source of their deepest service. God does not demand perfection before he calls us. He calls us through our imperfection. If we are honest enough to acknowledge it and courageous enough to keep going, as Rabbi Sachs writes, what we think of as our greatest weakness can become, if we wrestle with it, our greatest strength. Now, I really like that article. Whatever it is you feel disqualifies you, the failure you can't forget, the weakness you try to hide, ask yourself whether it might actually be the thing that makes you uniquely suited for your purpose. God does not choose the perfect. He chooses those who know they are not and who press forward anyway. Now, I've got another slide with this coming up. And I put that in there on purpose because, first off, you have to do things the way that God has for them to be done. We have numbers of stories, and one is in this portion, same portion that we have the dedication of the altar. And we have Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's sons. They made a mistake. They made a mistake, and their mistake was a sin, but I would call it a sin that they didn't see. Okay? It was not an intentional, I want to rebel against God. It was a sin performed out of ignorance. And it's where they pick up the strange fire, same chapter, or same portion, and they go into the holy place and they burn incense. It wasn't at the appointed time. It wasn't for them to do. Not at that time. They could have been selected to burn incense. And if it does go into the Kodesh HaKodeshim, if one of them became high priest, then they would have their time and do it, but they have to do it at the time God said. They rushed in, and we read that fire came forth and consumed them. We have that a different man in our own, he makes the morning offering, makes the evening offering, the afternoon offering, the minha, and he doesn't eat the parts that he's supposed to eat. They're things that are given to the Kohanim. And Moshe was greatly disturbed. And Moshe comes and says, why didn't you do this? And he said, such great things have befallen me. And all of a sudden, you have this awareness that he's now the high priest. Not just he performed the ceremony, he's now the high priest. He's thinking consciously before he comes before God. And it says Moshe was satisfied. We had one of the great heroes of the Bible made a terrible mistake, broke a scripture, broke several, and that was David after he was king. In his zeal for God, he wanted to bring the ark to Jerusalem. They loaded on a cart. It had been at the tent of Obed-Edom and away from Jerusalem. Well, I take it back. It had been among the Philistines and it went to Obed-Edom, and then they moved the ark on a cart. and the oxen stumbled. One of his mighty men was riding on the wagon, and he reached out to steady the ark. His concern was for the ark. God forbid that the ark would fall. You know, if you have a Torah scroll and the Torah scroll falls out of the ark and falls on the ground, the whole congregation fasts for a month. I mean, the Ark of the Covenant. Whoa. But you see, David had, God said to transport it by Kohanim carrying it. But this would be better. I have a better way. This would be better for the ark. It'd be easier on the priest. It would ensure the safety of the ark. But when Uzzah reaches out his hand, what happens? God strikes him dead. Now, why am I bringing all this up? Because we have to look at the halakha, and we're going to see exactly how they offered the Pesach lamb. But at the same time, we talked about this last week. Right now, let's say in 2027, they've got the Temple Mount, they're able to either use their kosher altar that they have and they take it down to the level of the bedrock, and they're able to offer that Pesach lamb. They have to do it at least 50 lambs because that's part of the halakha. It has to be 3 groups. And we'll look at the mission that defines that. And that will be doable following the halakha. Okay? That will be doable, very doable. They're going to have from Bain HaEravim, from the time actually half an hour before that, they're going to have all the way to dark to slaughter 50 lambs. And so that won't be a problem. But we have that we're told how many Jews, how many children of Israel with the mixed multitude came out of Egypt. Well, we know this. We know that they had a 600,000 man army. And I'd say that with 600,000 men, you're going to have 600,000 women. And that's not counting the children and the elderly. Okay? And so I would guess that there were 1.5 million to 2 million. I don't know, but quite a few people. I want to go to my papers and all right. We're going to go past this. Let me see. All right. I wrote this. All right. On Josephus in War 6, 423, 425. This is in Jewish War, the Jewish War. He says that at Passover, the sacrifices were slaughtered from the 9th to the 11th hour, with not fewer than 10 persons per offering. Okay? So the 9th to the 11th hour is 2 hours, and that the number counted was 256,500 offerings multiplied by the minimum. That gives his famous total of about 2,700,200 participants. And Josephus goes on in the actual text to describe this isn't the total population because some of the people were in impurity. And so you have to be circumcised to eat that lamb. So here in the Tosafta, it gives another number. The Tosafta does not preserve a numerical tradition in Tosafta Pesachim, the Lieberman edition, 415, Agrippa, this would be Agrippa II, wants to know the size of the population, tells the priest to set aside a kidney for each paschal offering, and the results are 600,000 pairs of kidneys. Wow, that's almost 3 times the number that Josephus has. Double those who went out of Egypt. This tradition is plainly intended as a count of the paschal offerings. The Bavli, Talmud Bavli, preserves the same tradition. In Pesachim 64b, Agrippa orders a count through the paschal offerings. The text reports 60 myriads of pairs of kidneys and then adds that there was not a single paschal lamb with fewer than 10 registrants, excluding the impure and those on a distant journey. If taken literally, this is a vastly higher figure than Josephus. All right, so let's go to another page. All right. Now, let's stop for a moment. And we're going to talk. Okay, so we have this problem. We have the halakha. It's going to be on how they offer the lambs. And we've got 600, excuse me, we've got Josephus recording 265,600 lambs. Okay. Now, when we put the halakha with those numbers, it's very, very, very difficult. I've been working on this for some time, and I'm baffled by it. I believe that following the halakha, if you vary the slightest bit, first we have to figure out the halakha of how they did it. Okay? How did they walk in that commandment? We're going to have some factors. Our factors are going to be space. Okay? So I want to lay some things out. Here, we have the altar. Now, this looks awful small, very small. But from this point, let me see if I can get where you can see. From this point, this is the north face, right here, going on this side. From that corner to this corner is 61.44 feet. Okay. And we have the same thing on each, it is square. Okay. So 61.44, that's almost 61 and a half feet for each side of the altar. Okay. But we have, and I showed this last week, let me move that and put this here. This is only found, this is called the Yesod, this is called the Saviv, and these are called the Kirnot, okay, the horns. Okay, Yesod means foundation. And so we have it on this side. We also have it on the north side, but there is no Yesod on the south side. And I'm going to show you a picture. All right. So this is the north side. Excuse me, this is the west side. Okay, right here. This is the west side. And so this is the south side. You see the difference? We got this little ledge right here. Well, they have to throw the blood of the Passover lamb in between this point and this point. So here's our problem. They've got about 2 hours to do it. possibly a little bit longer because their hours could be 7 or 8 minutes more than our hours right now. And they're going to slaughter back at the time. If we take Josephus's number, 265,600, if we take that number, how they do it. Now, people have said, well, maybe they slaughtered down in this area. Oh, wait, I'm not sharing. Maybe they slaughtered down in the court of the women. Well, still not sharing. There we go. Okay, maybe they slaughtered down here. Maybe they slaughtered totally off of the inner courtyards out here. You can't do it. The only place that you can slaughter is in this area right here. And if you see these buildings, I've done this before, but watch this little thing. It goes through. And so let me stand up. Okay. All right. Can you see that coming through? See the stick? Okay. And if I go on through, I can go all the way to the other side. And I don't think I can get it from that way. I can come from this way. All right. Now, the buildings, these are administrative buildings. They're administrative buildings, dormitories, and warehouses. But they have dividers in them. And these dividers mean that in the area that opens to the holiest area, it has the rules of that area. So this is called most holy. This is called most holy. This is called most holy. And this is called stubborn. Well, maybe I can. All right. We'll leave this one on. Now, you see this area here. This is administration buildings, so they're not going to be slaughtering in these areas, okay? And so these are for sleeping, they're for eating, they're for all. There we go, okay? So the priests sleep in this area. They have quarters in this area. In this area that's away from it. See, this is to the outside. This is the common area here. And this over here, this is warehouses and so forth. But they're able to sleep in the areas that are to the outside. They can sit down. They can slaughter in this area here. Why can they slaughter? Because it goes straight through. You see how that comes through? So it opens to the Azarah, and it does not open to this area, the Kel. Now, this is described in the scripture, in the book of Yehezkel. Now, I've got some figures just to give you an idea. And I put it in feet, in inches, and I put it in meters. So, this is a most holy area, okay? That's for the most holy offerings because it's north of the altar. This is for holy offerings. Doesn't matter. Not a Pesach, because you're told the Pesach offering is not a most holy offering. It is a holy offering, and you can offer it anywhere in this area and anywhere in this area and anywhere in this area. Now, this looks small. You say, wow, that's not that big. It's actually 50 cubits wide going from the south to the north across this way. It's 50 cubits, and that is a total of 32 yards. That is 96 feet, 32 yards exactly. And in meters, that's 29.26 meters. Okay, so almost 30 meters. In in um, I think I might have said this backwards. Okay. Yeah, it's 29.26 meters. Okay. Now, going from this end to here, that is 119.65 yards. That's about almost the length of that's over the length of a football field plus 20 yards, basically. But plus, yeah, 0.65. All right. And it comes to 359 feet, 0.04 inches. Okay. 359.04. That's huge. But we have some problems. What all do we have to do? Now, here's the deal. Let me put this back together before I lose the pieces. Being that we can only throw the blood on the north side and the west side, because this is the only place that has a yesod. We are going to have lines of priests. We're going to have where they slaughter. We're going to have a slaughtering area, okay, where they slaughter. Now, there's a walkway, and this walkway is back in here. It goes all the way around. And if you look here, that's kind of the width of the walkway. And so it goes all the way around and goes like this, okay? And so our problem is we got plenty of area to slaughter, but we're limited in how many lines of priests that we're going to have to carry the blood. Okay, I'm going to show a picture. And then we need to go to break. Now the picture's inaccurate. There are problems with this picture. It won't work. Okay? But what we're told, and we're going to look at these Mishnah as we come back, what we're told is that there were lines of priests, and in the picture, it's wrong because they can't have their back to the Holy of Holies because of the halakha. Okay? And we have a line, and you see these have a gold bowl, okay, with a handle, and these have a silver bowl with a handle, and they have a line from the slaughter point that this bowl is going to be passed down to the Kohen at the end who throws it against the altar. Now, this altar is by far too small. It would be much, much bigger than that. And so we are trying to calculate how many lines that we could have. Here's our problem. I'm going to bring this up for you when we come back. Our problem is that we've got we have to kill somewhere each line. There'll be anywhere between 30, 50, 60 lines, depending if we can work them in, okay? And they're going to have to, in order to kill 265,000 lambs, they're going to have to kill per line a lamb every 4 seconds. I take that back. They're going to have to kill, I think, 45 lambs every minute. Wow. So they have to kill over, we're talking 1,000 lambs being slain with 50 or 60 lions, and all this being, but wait, we've got the logistic problems because they have to move that dead lamb in order to put another one there. They have to draw the blood from that lamb. They have to pull it off, and somewhere they have to go and they have to skin that lamb. And all this has to be done in 2 hours. I'm going to tell one thing and then we'll go to break. I just had, I've spoken about this several times. I just had a granddaughter born, 2 of them, praise God. But one of them had a heart condition. And she had an aorta valve, or the artery, it was the width of a hair. And she was going to die if they didn't do surgery. She had 2 valves on the wrong side. She had a huge hole in her heart. And unless the heart is made just perfectly, it doesn't work. Unless the rulings that we have are done perfectly, it won't work. So, it's not a problem the first year they do it. 50 lambs, they can do it. But what about after Messiah comes and the whole nation is turned back to Hashem totally? We don't have secular, we have everybody is fervent for the commandments of God. How many people will they have in Jerusalem for the Pesach? How much fuel are they going to need for all the Pesach ovens? How many places will they be able to assemble to eat the Seder meal? It says it has to be within the walls of Jerusalem, and possibly is speaking of an eruv. Okay, so an eruv is a rope or a wire that is extended around the city, and it acts as a wall. Okay, but there are many, many, many complications, and the key thing is the universe. It operates. People can't tell you how. I mean, we know things about the ocean. It operates. The seasons, they operate. Nature operates. The human body operates. They're all miracles of God. The Passover offering, we know it was done. We know it was done according to the halakha. I have no problem with Josephus's numbers of 265,000. I would expect they could even be higher. But how'd they do it? If we're moving back towards the temple, the fullness of the Torah, then there has to be a shift from people having a zeal and running in and burning strange fire and moving an ark on a cart. Well, put your questions together. We'll be back. We're going to discuss more of this. It's very complex. It's very difficult. And I don't have the answers. I'm just presenting, here are the questions that we need to ask. And use this as a model of, I need to get serious about halakha. Okay, we'll be back.
es Gabriel Gallegos. Saludos a todos aquellos seguidores de Hacktivac Ministries, en especial a nuestra comunidad latina. El día de hoy queremos compartir con ustedes uno de los artículos más impresionantes que podemos tener en nuestra tienda virtual. Te invitamos a que te quedes y a conocer más del modelo tridimensional del templo. Les presento el nuevo modelo del templo. Una de las cosas adicionales que se han agregado en esta impresión es esta base donde está de una manera inclinada, 45 grados. ¿Para qué? Para que pueda enseñarse mejor a nuestra audiencia. O si usted, al igual que a mí, le gusta ponerlo de la manera tradicional y ponerlo en una superficie plana, pues también puedo hacerlo. De esta manera usted lo puede poner en su oficina o en su lugar de estudio o en su lugar de reunión. ¿Para qué? Para que la gente pueda admirar la gran maravilla de lo que se ha podido llegar a hacer. Ahora les voy a invitar a que me sigan acompañando para mirar las siguientes adiciones que se le han agregado a este nuevo modelo. Uno de los nuevos aspectos de este nuevo modelo tridimensional son los colores que se han añadido, como el color oro, el color blanco, un café y un café un poquito más claro. Podemos mirar el color blanco en los 15 escalones que están en el atrio de las mujeres, como también en las 4 lámparas. Podemos mirar el color blanco en el misbeach, en el altar, como también en los 2 escalones que están entre el ulam y el altar. Podemos encontrar este color blanco también en estos pequeños mikvaot o también baños de inmersión que se han añadido. También podemos apreciar en el misbeach, el altar, se agregaron a color las 3 fogatas y en el centro podemos encontrar de color café más claro las cenizas del altar. Otro de los buenos beneficios de este modelo es de que los edificios adicionales, el techo puede ser removido. En el edificio sureste podemos mirar cómo el área donde el Sanedrín se reunía para hacer sus juicios, y también se ha agregado un color azul en donde está el lavacro, para así poder distinguir las diferentes áreas. Les agradecemos mucho a cada uno de ustedes, especialmente a la comunidad latina, por estarnos acompañando. Pueden ir a Jerusalem Temple Studies y buscar la opción tienda o store en inglés y luego buscar modelos del templo y ahí podrán obtener el suyo. Bendiciones y gracias por su apoyo. Shalom. nombre es Gabriel Gallegos. Saludos a todos aquellos seguidores de Hacktivac Ministries, en especial a nuestra comunidad latina. El día de hoy queremos compartir con ustedes uno de los artículos más impresionantes que podemos tener en nuestra tienda virtual. Te invitamos a que te quedes y a conocer más del modelo tridimensional del templo. Les presento el nuevo modelo del templo. Una de las cosas adicionales que se han agregado en esta impresión es esta base donde está de una manera inclinada de 45 grados. ¿Para qué? Para que pueda enseñarse mejor a nuestra audiencia. O si usted, al igual que a mí, le gusta ponerlo de la manera tradicional y ponerlo en una superficie plana, pues también puedo hacerlo. De esta manera usted lo puede poner en su oficina o en su lugar de estudio o en su lugar de reunión. ¿Para qué? Para que la gente pueda admirar la gran maravilla de lo que se ha podido llegar a hacer. Ahora les voy a invitar a que me sigan acompañando.
All right. I apologize, we were a little bit longer on break. Gabrielle was working with me on trying to get the lights adjusted better. And we've got a brand new camera. We've got some settings we've got to figure out. But at any rate, let me see if I can get some room here. Okay. Again, please remember the Justin Klotz family. And please be praying for them. I mean, they've had just such a hard time. Secondly, be praying for Grayson Jeffords. He's got colon cancer, and he's had a rough go of it. And please be praying for him to have strength, that God will bring a miracle, and keep him, his wife, and his parents, all his family, in prayer. Okay, now some of the housekeeping here. Remember to put your questions up. Gabrielle went over some of the questions that have already been posted. They're great questions. And we're going to do a question and answer at the end. And if you like what you're hearing, please hit the like, hit the share, and follow us on Facebook, on YouTube, that you would subscribe. All your comments, all your likes, your shares, they help us, but I hope they also help you. Okay, and so all right, we'll get back into this. I'm going to share some of the material that we have here, and we just have to kind of scan down now. All right. Now if we'll read right here, only two sides of the altar had the yesod, the northern and western, as well as the amma on the southern side. The altar was 32 amot square. I've already given you the 61.44 feet. Using the largest amma possible for a 6 tefachim amma, 23.0 French, arrive at a total of 124.80 feet available for the throwing. The western side of the altar is problematic. It's the temple building in the 12 steps. Okay, so let me get my model here. And so because the temple building is right here, from this point here to the western side of the altar is 22 cubits. Okay, so that's about 45 feet. Okay, but at the bottom, this area right here, there's only 2 cubits. The stairway has to be constructed this way for several reasons. During Sukkot, they have to make a circle with the Kohanim around the altar, marching, doing Hakapah circuits. And so this area is problematic on can they get as many of the lines of priests here? And then how many lines can they get? And so we're going to present the different options of what all right. So here, the question, how many lines or is it feasible to have under these conditions? Okay. The length of it's not the bottleneck is not really the length of each priestly row, but the number of simultaneous terminal pouring stations. In other words, the priests that are down next to the altar that can work along the north and western yesod. First, all right, we start. Okay, so here. We have 220 minutes to sunset. This is set in the way it was about 30 Common Era. So Josephus is 256, 500 sacrifices imply about 1,166 per minute. That is blood being applied to the altar. 1,166 per minute. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, a second key point, the sources do not require a long walk from every slaughter point. Okay, I have a problem with that sentence. The problem is that each of the lines going to have about 45 lambs that they slaughter per minute. Okay, and so that takes a lot of space. That not only takes space to slaughter, they have to lay the lamb down. The lamb has to be orientated with its body to the south. That is all korbanot, even the red heifer, who's not a korban and is not slaughtered in the temple. It has to have its body to the south. Its head has to be turned to where the face is looking towards the Holy of Holies. The slaughterer has to stand on the east side of it, and to the south of it would be the Kohen that is catching the blood. Only the Kohanim are allowed to handle the blood. The slaughterer cannot do it. In the case that you have, let's say someone did not know how to slaughter, then a Kohen or a relative would do that. Okay, but they have to put that lamb down. They have to position it correctly. Then they have to cut its throat. Now, I asked questions and I was using AI. There's no way I could do the math on this. And so let me get back here and put this up here. All right. All right. Here is, all right. In Mishnah Zephachim 1:4, it explicitly notes that one can slaughter at the sides of the altar and dash immediately, which shows that the limiting factor is not the total court area, but how many priests can actually operate at the altar face at once. So how many lines are feasible? On the north side, let's read this one. If you take a purely geometric maximum and pack terminal priest absurdly tightly, you could imagine roughly one terminal station per cubit. Okay, so if you have 32 cubits, that'd be 32 positions along the usable yesod. giving a hard upper bound of roughly 64 stations. You've got two sides of 32 cubits. 32 plus 32 equals 64, north plus west. But that is not operationally realistic. Priests need room to receive, turn, splash, and pass the empties back, and the west side is cramped by the 22-cubit zone in front of the temple and its steps. A more plausible estimate is on the north side, about 14 to 18 active lines, and on the west side, 6 to 10 active lines. So that would give you a maximum with this setting of 28 lines. So the problem is with 28 lines, you can't get 265,000 in the amount of time. All right, this is the range I would call, meaning the AI is calling itself I would call architecturally credible. Why that range? Because the north side is where the slaughter infrastructure sits in midot. Rings, tables, pillars, shambles, so it can support dense relay work. The west side is theoretically 30 cubits long too, but in practice, it is a less efficient base. With 20 lines, Josephus requires about 45 lambs per minute per line in the weekday setting. That's one lamb every 1.3 seconds, okay, per line. Okay, you got to understand, it's not talking about across the 20 lines, okay? So how are you going to do that? That's a bottleneck right there. You've got all these lambs that are going to be there. Then you have to have a problem with where do you skin them? You've got to skin them. So I want to read a Mishnah to you. Okay. This is out of Pesachim, chapter 5, Mishnah 9. And what it says is, how do they suspend and flay? Iron hooks were fixed into the walls and into the pillars of which they suspended and flayed. Okay. And let's talk about that sentence right there. Let's put the model back. And so we're told that there were dwarf pillars. Okay, and so let me point to them. Inside here, there are dwarf pillars. Now, the posts that are on top, that is an open roof, we believe. And that is based upon the way that it's worded out of the Septuagint, as well as material we have from the slaughterhouse in the temple scroll. But I believe that where they had these hooks, I can't see them putting hooks on this face of the temple building. Okay. I just cannot imagine them doing that. What I believe that they're talking about is inside of here and inside of here. Okay. And so remember, this is about 30 yards across here. Okay. And it's over 120 yards this way. Okay. Bigger, quite a bit longer than a football field. And my guess is that let's draw a line straight down the middle. And they're going to use this area in order to hang the lambs to allow them to be able to skin. Now, I'll read the rest of that Mishnah. But I believe that they're going to have in this area, as well as in the walkway going around, that's where your slaughtering is going to be. And they would have to have where they slaughter, and then those lambs are immediately picked up. They'd have to have crews. It means we're going to have lots and lots of people. I mean, we're talking, if you have 265,000 lambs, you have to have 265,000 people for just bringing the lambs. That means you have 265 priests that are catching the blood. You have these rows of priests that are passing the blood down to the altar. Now, one thing that is a possibility is we have a miracle of God with that many people. Now, I want to mention something just for thought. By the way, I know we won't get to it. I've got like 80 pages of material that I've put together, but I asked the question, how much blood is required? How big are these bowls? The bowls with the handle, how big are they? And the Temple Institute has been making some of these for some time. And if I can find my Pesachim where I said it, I'll show you a picture of them. Here we go. I'll show you a picture of them. But there's no specifications that we found so far on the size of the bowls, and there is no documentation that we know of on how much blood they had to hold. Here is a picture of these. Okay, and so let me share the screen. And you can see the silver and you can see the gold. And so these, I would say that is about probably half the size of a liter of Coke or something along those lines. What I did find out is that in cutting the jugular vein, that it would fill up almost immediately. It would just literally fill up. Now we have another problem. And we had a research meeting last Thursday. We have a lady that grew up on a ranch, and she was talking about it's not only the blood that's going to create a mess. Remember, everybody's barefoot. But when that animal is killed, then you're going to have fetal matter that just comes out. And so there's going to have to be washing continually for that to remain a safe area, a sanitary area to a degree. And, all of these things, it's the logistics that make it awesome. Okay. Yeah. I've had people tell me, oh, well, that explains why the Hezkel temple is so big. The inner courtyard where they do this is not. It's go and look for yourself. It's going to be a small area in relationship to the entire Temple Mount, but you can't use the entire Temple Mount. You have to do it in this place. So there is another element. First off, the problems I see are the human failure. Okay. Human failure, somebody bumps into someone else, someone spills the blood. If the blood spilled, you cannot use it. Okay. It immediately is deemed unacceptable. Okay. But there's another item here. We have a lady that is retired. I believe she's retired now, but she's a medical doctor, and she did surgery, and she was talking with us about how fast a team that is specific for this, how they're able to operate. I mean, they come in and nobody says, do this, do that. Everybody knows what to do. Whenever a instrument has to be placed in the hand of a doctor, he simply says what it is, and it's immediately in his hand. And so we have an efficient working organism that is able to do the maximum. And I believe that the Kohanim were exactly that way. They trained their life. They were dedicated to this. Okay. So I think it's not going to be a matter so much of human error. It would be a matter of correct organization. Number two is that we always have the possibility of with these extreme numbers, God doing a miracle. We have the account of the prophet Eliyahu, Elijah, that from the top of Mount Carmel, he ran to Jezreel and he outran the king's chariots. That, by the way, is very close. It's about 26 miles. You might know that as a marathon. And so he was, we believe that he was an older man. That was a miracle of God. We have where David's men go out and they fight against enemies. One, we're told he slew 1,000 with this sword. You go, well, I have problems believing that. I don't. Not if God's doing a miracle. Okay. Now, it doesn't say God does a miracle here, but I don't want to leave that out as a possible factor. Okay. So let's go back here. We'll get a little bit further. And I'd like to pursue this till I get through. See, we're only on page 4 of about 40, but just 40 in this. I have 2 papers of about 40. All right. If they have 28 lines, they have 32 lambs per minute. That's one every 1.9 seconds. All right. Even with very aggressive 32 lines is about 28 per minute, one every 2.1 seconds. Okay. A feasible active relay line, probably 20 to 28, perhaps up to the low 30s in extreme reconstruction. Not feasible. Anything that requires the altar to function as though 50 to 60 fully usable simultaneous pour stations were operating smoothly. Historical implication. Josephus's 256,500 is very difficult to sustain as a literal. Whoa, I'm not letting you look. It's easy for me to forget. All right. So here, you can look over. All right. Historical Josephus's 256,000 is very difficult to sustain as a literal operational count for one afternoon, even allowing for extreme efficiency. The Mishnah absolutely supports massive throughput, but Josephus's figure still looks rhetorically inflated, texturally stylized, or at least logistically strained. I don't agree with that statement. I believe that it is probably accurate. All right. Let's see. Let's go to the next page. And the halakhic rule down here. The Mishnah is strict. The lamb must be eaten within the city walls. Now, I mentioned the eruv. The group must be registered beforehand, minimum 10 participants. One group cannot split. Okay, we're not going to talk about the Ir HaMikdash right now. But let me just mention a few other problems. All right. All right. Using at 10 people per lamb, you have 2,565,000 diners. So you have now convert the lamb count into minimum district Seder spaces. Um, all right. I'm just going to sum this up so that we can get to some questions. Okay. Let me shut this down. I'm going to try to pare this down. Hopefully, we've been in the post Passover getting everything put back together, and we've also had to take a few trips during this time. I'm hoping that I have some time that I can dedicate to putting this together and trying to get it condensed down. But what I do want to communicate is that the detail, it has to be done exactly as it's recorded in the Mishnah. It's not because it's recorded in the Mishnah that we have to do it. It's because God set that precedent back in the Torah that they would make rulings on how things are done. Now, there is a difference. I got to mention this. In the case of the temple, they did not make decisions on how things were done on almost everything. There are few things that they were allowed to do. But God gave the services. We're told this in 1 Chronicles 28, verse 13. It says that he gave the work of the service, what they sang, what they prayed, exactly how it was done. And so what the court did, what the Sanhedrin did, is they made a record of how it was done. And that's what we have in the Mishnah. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop here and we're going to go to questions. And let me get, all right. Okay. So Tim Smalley. Tim, it was so good having you here at the Seder. And uh, I, I hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. Okay. And Scott Paddock from Huron, I'm saying it wrong. Huron, Ohio. Scott and Jane. And Scott's been down here, I'm pretty sure, for Pesach. He's been for some of the other festivals. And he is a great teacher. And if any of you are looking for somebody to come and teach, always consider Scott. Okay. Jeff Osborne, part of my research team. Shalom and Jeff. Edgar from Austin, from the great capital of Texas. Edgar Ramos. And Dot Olson. Dot, it's always good to see you. Richard Setzinger from Greenwood, Arkansas. And Jennifer Cash, she was here for the Seder. And I also got a report from you this morning, Jennifer, about Grayson. And then, as I mentioned, I talked to him later. Mike Fincher. Mike's been back and forth to Israel with us, and he's also part of our research team. Desiree Martin. And Desiree, I'm always glad to see you. And from South Carolina, hand pink waving. Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm kind of behind the times. Deb Galetta Heath from Wisconsin, from Beth Emanuel, that's First Fruits of Zion. Ruth Broseline from Florida. I don't remember seeing you before, Ruth, but well, you are very welcome. All right, Ann Shepard from Port Neches, Texas, and she was here. In fact, she rode in my car here. All right, Adriana, that's Edgar's other half, I believe. Okay, and Desiree again. Betty Brush, also from Beth Emanuel, from Wisconsin. From Betty, it's good to have you. And Daryl Wade. And Daryl, I know that there were tornadoes up in your neck of the woods in Kansas. All right. Mike from Montana. Mike, are you back in Montana now? Did you leave Arizona? And Kathy Murray. And Kathy and Don have been with us many trips to Israel. Elka Espino Diaz de Castillo. Shalom, shalom to you from Texas. Dan Solis. Dan, I hope your Seder was great. Greg Moon, he was over here today or yesterday. Today, yeah. All right. Alice Turnbull from Alberta, Canada. Love the Canadians. And we have Victor Schultz from Missouri and Missional Walk. Denise Perez. And shalom to you, and it's fine being late. Okay, here's a question from Daryl Wade. What do you think the Temple Institute will build first, the altar or the Hamikdash? Oh, they will build the altar first. That's going to be based on Ezra chapter 3, verse 6. And they will start the services. And if they do not have a red heifer, they are limited on the services they can do. They can do the Tamid, they can do the Musaf services for Rosh Hashanah, for Pesach, for Shavuot, for Rosh Hashanah, for Yom Kippur, and for Sukkot. Okay, but things that are not appointed times, they will not be allowed to do without a red heifer. All right, give me a second. I'm going to turn here to the Ezra 3. One more page. Well, it's started on page 7. I got to go another page. All right. Oh, wait. I'm in Nehemiah. Just a minute. So here it says, and when the 7th month was come, this is Ezra 3:1, and the children of Israel were in the cities, the people gathered themselves together as one man to Jerusalem. Then stood up Yeshua the son of Jehozadak and his brethren, the Kohanim, and Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel and his brethren, and they built the altar of the God of Israel to offer burnt offerings upon it, as it is written in the Torah of Moshe, the man of God, and they set the altar upon its bases, for fear was upon them because of the people of those countries, and they offered burnt offerings upon it to the Lord, burnt offerings morning and evening, that's the Tamid. And they kept the festival of Sukkot, as it is written, and offered the daily burnt offering by number according to the prescribed form, as the duty of every day required. And afterward, they offered the continual burnt offering, both of the new moons and of all the sacred appointed seasons of the Lord, and on behalf of everyone who willingly offered a free will offering to the Lord. That means that they had a red heifer. From the first day of the 7th month, this is the 6th verse, they began to offer burnt offerings to the Lord. But the foundation of the temple of the Lord was not yet laid. So they will follow that biblical precedent and build the altar first. And I'm sure at first they will use the altar they have, take it down to bedrock, place it there, and then they will come in and construct a full-size altar as they continue. All right? All right. All right. As well, the Mizbeach, that's the altar built on bedrock, does the Aron sit on a bedrock also. The Aron, the ark, we don't think that they will have an ark in the next temple. We know that they won't have one, or we're fairly certain they will not have one for the at least into the Yehezkel temple, and we do not believe that it will be there at that time. Now, let me go to a passage of the book of Jeremiah, and hopefully I can find this real quick. I think that this is going to be in chapter 33. But let me see. All right, give me a second. Can find the verse. I'm going to use one of my Bible programs to find it because it's a very good verse. Jeremiah 3:16. All right, it says, then it shall come to pass when you are multiplied and increased in the land in those days, says the Lord, that they will say no more, the ark of the covenant of the Lord. It shall not come to mind, nor shall they remember it, nor shall they visit it, nor shall it be made anymore. At that time, Jerusalem shall be called the throne of God, and all the nations shall be gathered to it, to the name of the Lord, to Jerusalem. No more shall they follow the dictates of their evil hearts. In those days, the house of Yehudah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given as an inheritance to your father. And it goes on. You can read chapter 3 for yourself there. Okay, I hope that helps. All right, Darren Anthony, Shalom from New York City. We'll need to review and present questions on this teaching regarding Yeshua. Review the teachings for his inheritance rights from Yosef. Doesn't seem to be a Torah law or halakha to establish royal inheritance, only midrash. No, midrash would not suffice. I'll see if I can find the halakha. Now, if you can see here, this is Mishneh Torah, and I know that within Mishneh Torah, it will have that. Mishneh Torah is built upon halakha, which means that that halakha is going to be found either in the Mishnah, the Tosafta, or the Talmud. Okay? But very good question. And let me commend you to, first off, going in and you find the information. If you don't find it, keep digging. And we need to get that halakha exactly where it's from so that people can have that. All right. All right. So how would they have been able to drain the blood in a kosher manner in time for the lamb to be roasted? Okay. First off, they're going to skin them, and we have a description of the skinning. I didn't read all of that a while ago. Let me see if I can do that. All right. Let me share. Um, Okay, so this is in Pesachim 5:9, and also we'll look at Pesachim 5:10. How did they suspend and flay? Iron hooks were fixed into the walls and into the pillars into which they suspended and flayed. And for whoever did not have room to suspend and flay, there were thin, smooth stays which he placed on his shoulder, known as fellow's shoulder, and so suspended and flayed. Rabbi Eliezer says that the 14th fellow in Shabbat, he placed his hand on his fellow's shoulder, and his fellow's hand rested on his shoulder. All right. This is where they're taking the hide off. He tore it open and took out its emerim. He put them on a tray and burned them on the altar. Okay. Now, this part here, I don't know when it says he. Okay, after he played the hide of the Korban Pesach, all of this, the offering on the altar has to be done by a Cohen. Yeah. Let's see. They are going to slaughter, throwing its blood, the cleaning of its entrails, the burning of its helev, that's the fat that are around the organs, but its roasting and the rinsing of its entrails do not override Shabbat. I want to go to where that they describe okay. See if I can. I need to find where it talks about how they roast it. Go back. Well, here it is. How do they roast the Pesach? They bring a spit of pomegranate wood, thrust it through its mouth to its anus, and place its legs and entrails inside the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Hagili. Rabbi Akiva says this is a form of cooking, rather they are hung outside it. They may not roast the Pesach on a spit or on a grill. Rabbi Zadok said it once happened that Rabban Gamliel said to Tabi, his slave, go out and roast first the Pesach on the grill. If it touches the earthenware of the oven, he must pare off that part. If some of its juice dripped onto the earthenware and returned to it, he must remove the part. If some of the juice dripped on the floor, he must remove a handful from that place. If it's basted with oil, if the group is composed of priests, they may eat. If Israelites, if it is raw, they must rinse it, but if it is roasted, he pares the outside. If he basted it with oil of Maaser Sheni second time, its value may not be charged to the members of the group, for Maaser Sheni may not be redeemed in Jerusalem. All right. I don't know that it's going to answer that question specifically, but I'll try to ask some of the rabbis that I know. That would be interesting. All right, let's get back to the questions. All right. Okay, Ann's asking, when you say body to the south, do you mean the belly or the back? Basically, the backbone is going to be orientated towards the south, okay? And then the head is turned to face toward the Holy of Holies. And that's not only for the Pesach, that's for every single offering, okay? Okay. Victor's asking, so the western part of the altar is limited by the 12 steps leading up to the ulam. It is. I mean, I'm sure that they had lines going over the steps, and they're going to need every available space they can find. And so, yeah, and he's asking, why can't the many lines use a few of the steps, which are only 1/2 cubit high each, but much wider with plenty of room to stand? Certainly. Can severed lines approach from the north as well as the south? Yes. Those lines could wrap around. There's not a restriction on where the lines originate from, as long as they originate from the place of the slaughter, which has to be in the Azarah or those areas that are attached to the Azarah where slaughtering was done. By the way, to validate the northern wall and a slaughter area in the northern wall, and my personal opinion is if they have one in the northern wall for the most holy, they also had one in the south wall for the for the holy offerings. It's going to be found in Ezekiel chapter 40, starting in verse 38. There was a chamber in its entrance by the gatepost of the gateway where they washed the burnt offering. In the vestibule of the gateway were 2 tables on this side, 2 tables on that side, on which to slay the burnt offering, the sin offering, and the trespass offering. And by the way, the preceding verses tells you that they're talking about the north gate of the Azarah. Verse 35. Then he brought me to the north gateway and measured it according to these same measurements, and then he goes forward. At the outer side of the vestibule, as one goes up to the entrance on the northern gateway, were two tables. On the other side of the vestibule of the gateway were two tables. 4 tables were on this side, 4 tables on that side by side. On the gateway, 8 tables on which they slaughtered the offerings. There were also 4 tables of hewn stone for the burnt offering, 1 cubit and a half long, 1 cubit and a half wide, 1 cubit high, and on these they laid the instruments with which they slaughtered the burnt offering and the sacrifice. Inside were hooks. A handbreadth were fastened all around, and the flesh of the sacrifices was on the tables. That's why I believe it's on those slaughter areas on the north and south where the hooks were in the walls, based on that passage. Okay, so a similar number of lines on the north and the west for splashing. I'm pretty sure that they got as many lines as they could on each of those sides. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. Remember that the last coin has to make at least one step. And if he's at the bottom, there's only 2 cubits. So he has about 3.5 feet. I mean, it's doable, very doable, but he has to throw it and then he has to pass it back as he receives another vessel. Okay, good, Mike. All right, Dan Solis, shalom, everyone. All right, if a number of Jews perform a proper on bedrock Korban Pesach next year, will the tamid be required every day thereafter? In other words, can the altar be paused once started? My personal opinion, okay, I had to talk with some halakhic authorities on this, but my personal opinion, once they start it, they will continue with the daily tamid, okay? And as they come to the succeeding festivals, once it goes into motion, the temple is operational, even if the temple building is not yet constructed, on condition that they are constantly working to bring it to completion. In other words, you can't just say, oh, we got an altar, why do we need a temple building? They are required to build the temple. And so they would have to work and do that. All right. Anne's question, if the blood is deemed unacceptable, what is done with the lamb? Realize another lamb must be used. They have to take that lamb out and burn it. Now, there's a place called the Beit HaSaraf, and it's north of the city. Actually know where that was located. Has another name, means the place of burning. It also is called the place of ashes, Beit Hadeshin, and it has to be taken out there and burned. And as you correctly said, another lamb would have to be in its place. Now, the blood being unacceptable, that means it got spilled, okay? And otherwise, the animals would be there, and they would be kosher animals and so forth. All right. Just follow him. 2 Chronicles 7:7. They consecrate the ground of the temple because of the high volume of korbanot. Was it possible they did something similar in Josephus's Pesach account? Let me check 2 Chronicles 7:7, and I want to see it. There are requirements that the korbanot, in fact, the Kohanim are not allowed to wear their priestly garments outside the inner courtyards. Okay, and so 2 Chronicles 7:7. All right, Solomon sanctified the interior of the courtyard that was before the temple of Hashem. And what we have here, Oh, for there he performed the service of the burnt offerings and the fat of the peace offerings, for the copper altar that Solomon made could not contain the burnt offerings, the meal offerings, and the fats. Okay. Basically, what it's saying here, it doesn't mean that they moved out of the Azarat. It means that he sanctified the interior of the courtyard that was before the temple of Hashem. My guess is that, let me see. It says Hahatzor Asher Lifnei Beit Hashem. Okay, that would be your inner courtyard. Yes, Hashem Ha Holot Ve'et Liv. Let me check something. And that's First Chronicles, right? Second. All right. And that is 7:7. Okay. I'm reading sanctify the inside of the courtyard which lay in front of the house of Hashem, for they burnt. Okay, so the commentary on this. As taught in the end of our verse, the copper stone altar which Solomon had built, see chapter 4, verse 1 in commentary there, proved inadequate for the great number of sacrifices brought on the day of the inauguration. Because of this, Solomon sanctified the pavement of the temple court, in effect converting it into an extension of the altar. Excuse me. The overflow of sacrificial parts which could not be handled on the altar could now be burnt there. It doesn't mean that they went outside the Azarat. This interpretation accords with the opinion Rabbi Yehuda is taught in Zevakim 59a and following. Rabbi Yossi's opinion is that no sacrifices were ever burned upon the pavement. The sanctification mentioned in our verse was not made in order to convert the floor into an extension of the altar, but in order to ready it for the building of a new altar. The one mentioned at 4:1. It had become necessary to build this new altar because Moshe's altar, which had done service up to that time, was now to be withdrawn. Details of this Tanakh disagreement and of the complex issues involved in it can be found in Zevakim 59a and following. That means it's the Babylonian Talmud. And you can, if you have a copy of the Talmud, you can look that up to see the argument. But you can also go, if you write it down, Zevakim, Zevachim 59a. You can go to Sephora and see the commentary now. But for sure, they did not go out of the Azarat. And so it's an interesting thing to look at. All right. Can the lamb with the unacceptable blood be used for the Beitzah? No. Okay. So the Mishnah, it cannot. It's a disqualified lamb. Chapter 6 of Pesachim. I think it's Mishnah 1. No, not 1. It is 6:3. Okay. So let me share. All right. Pesachim 6:3. When does one bring a Hagigah with it? When it is offered on a weekday in cleanliness and it is insufficient. In other words, that what it means and is insufficient means that the one lamb that was offered as a Pesach is not enough to feed everyone. Okay, when it is offered on the Shabbat, meaning the Pesach is offered on Shabbat, abundantly or in uncleanness, they do not bring with it a Hagigah. A Hagigah can be brought from the small cattle, from the large cattle, from the sheep, or from the goats. Okay, here it's from the small cattle, from the males or from the females, and may be eaten for 2 days and 1 night. Okay. Okay. So, all right. All right. Once the blood moves down the line, the lamb is being moved away. It would be impossible to stop and do a reverse count back to it. The lamb would be assumed fit. I agree. I thought about that. How would they know which lamb that the blood came from? And I don't have the answer. I'd have to ask, someone that knows the halakha better than me. Yeah, the hockey guy. I realize that's what you meant. All right. Richard Setzinger. Will the offerings be suspended while the temple is constructed? No. Once they start, they will continue with them. Now, it's possible that they will have to have the slaughtering areas set up and so forth. We have 3 slaughter areas that we know of. I do not expect that there are more, but the slaughtering areas, let me here. Okay, so the slaughtering areas, this slaughtering area would be, all this area is going to be used. Every place they can use it, Pesach, because there's just so many animals. But on other occasions, this slaughter area here, actually, it includes this area here. There are tables, there are dwarf pillars in here. This is, we believe, for communal offerings, things for the community. On the sides, these areas for the most holy on the north, for the holy on the south, and these are for personal private offerings, not communal offerings. But the temple building, I'm not sure exactly how they had this mapped out. I don't know if they will use a semi-permanent type structure, a tent that would house the altar of incense, the menorah, the table of the bread. There is a very, very interesting article that was done by Dr. Ronnie Wright and Yuval Baruch, and very tremendous archaeologists on how the temple was built. Okay, how that they had to build the temple in sections so that the people could continue coming all the time. And it's a tremendous article. I'll see if next week I can show you the article and show you some of the illustrations with it. But the temple building will go up while the services are being conducted. You have to remember that the Herodian temple started about 25 BCE and was finished shortly before the Great Revolt in 66 Common Era. That's almost 80 or 90 years to build it. And so you're not going to suspend the building of the temple, including the temple building. Once they start the Korban, they will continue. Right? All right. I skipped Betty Brush. I've been reading the Torah portion in Hebrew every week. I'll finish tomorrow for this week. I've been enjoying. Oh, wonderful, Betty. I mean, tremendous. That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that you can do that. Oh, Alberta and Natanya from Mexico. Shalom, shalom. And let's go back. We were watching the video of y'all's wedding ceremony just Thursday. Yeah. No, Sunday. Sunday. It was really good. All right. All right, Teresa Anderson. I'm better late than better here than not. All right. Second temple altar was materially larger in surface area than the bronze altar of Solomon's era. Yes, it is. That's true. And there is in the tractate Midot in chapter 3, it tells about when they enlarged the altar, how much they enlarged it, and so forth. All right, from Indonesia, shalom. Shalom. I'm so glad that you're here. That's tremendous. Okay. Leonardo Dopelic. Shalom, shalom. And from, oh, wow. We had someone on from Ghana last week. And so tremendous. People, thank you so much for being with us. I know that we didn't reach conclusions here, but whenever I started working on this, I just saw the miracle of God's workings. The only way this will work is by God's hand, and the miracle of His workings, and just everything. It makes you go, wow! It's enormous. It's bigger, but the temple is given to us to teach us about God. That's why it's given. We won't have it in the Olam Haba. We won't need it because in the Olam Haba, we're going to be. We won't need prophets. We won't need teachers. We won't need the temple. And so, when you recognize the enormity of this one annual ceremony, then all of a sudden you realize that, goodness, it all starts to understand with the basic daily offering. And then you move up and then you expand. You start to learn the architecture. We're actually commanded two places. One is in the book of Ezekiel. Second is in the book of Revelation, to measure the pattern of the temple, to learn all its exits, its entrances, all its buildings, all its forms, all its laws, all of these things. Why? God just wants us to be scholastic. He wants us to know Him. He wants us to have the questions to ask that are going to lead to understanding the redemption that our Messiah performs. Okay? And so all of this has a purpose and a reason. Please be praying for the Hotz family. Be praying for Grayson. All of you be safe and count the Omer. Shalom, shalom.
Mi nombre es Gabriel Gallegos. Saludos a todos aquellos seguidores de Hacktivac Ministries, en especial a nuestra comunidad latina. El día de hoy queremos compartir con ustedes uno de los artículos más impresionantes que podemos tener en nuestra tienda virtual. Te invitamos a que te quedes y a conocer más del modelo tridimensional del templo. Les presento el nuevo modelo del templo. Una de las cosas adicionales que se han agregado en esta impresión es esta base donde está de una manera inclinada de 45 grados. ¿Para qué? Para que pueda enseñarse mejor a nuestra audiencia. O si usted, al igual que a mí, le gusta ponerlo de la manera tradicional y ponerlo en una superficie plana, pues también puedo hacerlo. De esta manera usted lo puede poner en su oficina o en su lugar de estudio o en su lugar de reunión. ¿Para qué? Para que la gente pueda admirar la gran maravilla de lo que se ha podido llegar a hacer. Ahora les voy a invitar a que me sigan acompañando para mirar las siguientes adiciones que se le han agregado a este nuevo modelo. Uno de los nuevos aspectos de este nuevo modelo tridimensional son los colores que se han añadido, como el color oro, el color blanco, un café y un café un poquito más claro. Podemos mirar el color blanco en los 15 escalones que están en el atrio de las mujeres, como también en las 4 lámparas. Podemos mirar el color blanco en el misbeach, en el altar, como también en los 2 escalones que están entre el ulam y el altar. Podemos encontrar este color blanco también en estos pequeños mikvaot o también baños de inmersión que se han añadido. También podemos apreciar en el misbeach, el altar, se agregaron a color las 3 fogatas y en el centro podemos encontrar de color café más claro las cenizas del altar. Otro de los buenos beneficios de este modelo es de que los edificios adicionales, el techo puede ser removido. En el edificio sureste podemos mirar cómo el área donde el Sanedrín se reunía para hacer sus juicios, y también se ha agregado un color azul en donde está el lavacro para así poder distinguir las diferentes áreas. Les agradecemos mucho a cada uno de ustedes, especialmente a la comunidad latina, por estarnos acompañando. Pueden ir a Jerusalem Temple Studies y buscar la opción tienda o store en inglés y luego buscar modelos del templo y ahí podrán obtener el suyo. Bendiciones y gracias por su apoyo. Shalom. nombre es Gabriel Gallegos. Saludos a todos aquellos seguidores de Hacktivac Ministries, en especial a nuestra comunidad latina. El día de hoy queremos compartir con ustedes uno de los artículos más impresionantes que podemos tener en nuestra tienda virtual. Te invitamos a que te quedes y a conocer más del modelo tridimensional del templo. Les presento el nuevo modelo del templo. Una de las cosas adicionales que se han agregado en esta impresión es esta base donde está de una manera inclinada de 45 grados. ¿Para qué? Para que pueda enseñarse mejor a nuestra audiencia. O si usted, al igual que a mí, le gusta ponerlo de la manera tradicional y ponerlo en una superficie plana, pues también puedo hacerlo. De esta manera usted lo puede poner en su oficina o en su lugar de estudio o en su lugar de reunión. ¿Para qué? Para que la gente pueda admirar la gran maravilla de lo que se ha podido llegar a hacer. Ahora les voy a invitar a que me sigan acompañando para mirar las siguientes adiciones que se le han agregado a este nuevo modelo. Uno de los nuevos aspectos de este nuevo modelo tridimensional son los colores que se han añadido, como el color oro, el color blanco, un café y un café un poquito más claro. Podemos mirar el color blanco en los 15 escalones que están en el atrio de las mujeres, como también en las 4 lámparas. Podemos mirar el color blanco en el misbeach, en el altar, como también en los 2 escalones que están entre el ulam y el altar. Podemos encontrar este color blanco también en estos pequeños mikvaot o también baños de inmersión que se han añadido. También podemos apreciar en el misbeach, el altar, se agregaron a color las 3 fogatas y en el centro podemos encontrar de color café más claro las cenizas del altar. Otro de los buenos beneficios de este modelo es de que los edificios adicionales, el techo puede ser removido. En el edificio sureste podemos mirar cómo el área donde el Sanedrín se reunía para hacer sus juicios, y también se ha agregado un color azul en donde está el lavacro, para así poder distinguir las diferentes áreas. Les agradecemos mucho a cada uno de ustedes, especialmente a la comunidad latina, por estarnos acompañando. Pueden ir a Jerusalem Temple Studies y buscar la opción tienda o store en inglés y luego buscar modelos del templo y ahí podrán obtener el suyo. Bendiciones y gracias por su apoyo. Shalom.